Hello, St. Ursula community. This is Sara Hyzdu, neuroscience coach and mom to 3 boys. I want to start by sharing I've got a little bit of anxiety around having my own BBC moment here. I've got 3 little ones on the other side of that door, so I'm crossing my fingers that this time will remain between you and I. Now, I've had the joy of working with Lilia and her leadership team, so I was thrilled when she asked me to be part of this video series, despite the unfortunate circumstance. Now, I love neuroscience. As a neuroscience coach, I have the joy of taking brain insights and figuring out real and practical ways to apply them to make you more effective. Now, today, we're living in an abundance of information. I'd almost argue that we have too many ideas for what we could or should be doing. So my goal for our time today is actually not to give you a list of new things to be doing, but to give you a new view for how to look at the things that you could be doing that might best serve you to help your brain feel calm in order to survive and maybe even thrive in the crisis we're facing today. I want to share 2 primary concepts that we will get into, as well as ideas for how we can action them. The first concept, I want to start with a couple of questions. Are you possibly having a hard time focusing? Maybe you're noticing that you're not quite as decisive with decision making, or even having a hard time falling asleep at night despite how tired you feel. I'd like to say that that's not you, that's your brain. And that's because the first concept I want to talk about is your brain craves certainty. This is not a surprise because we all feel anxiety and stress because we don't know what tomorrow brings. But what you might not know is that uncertainty and stress that we're feeling has a physical impact to our body and brain as well. Not having certainty is threatening, and that might seem a little over the top, but it comes down to this one organizing principle that all of the complexity of our brain, the billions of neurons and trillions of connections, are all subservient to this one thing: minimize threat and maximize reward. Or said another way, we like to be safe, and then when we're safe, we like to feel good. The 2 things that are interesting on this that you might not know, and with this threat response, by the way, is a stress response. When you feel stress, cortisol and adrenaline is emitted throughout your body. What that does is it gets your arms and legs primed for the best physical ability to take fight or flight. But the 2 things on the stress response that you might not know is 1, physical threats register the same way as social threats in our brain. So if you are physically feeling threatened, perhaps walking down the alley with dark alley with footsteps behind you, you feel that adrenaline pulsing through your veins to prepare you to take flight in your body to be at its peak performance condition. The social threat of not having certainty has the same reaction. The real challenge in this is that all of our resources are being put towards our physical needs. And the reality is that means our mental processing is minimized. That's why it's difficult to remain focused, make decisions, sleep when you're tired, those kind of things. Your brain is just in a fog. So I want to shift the conversation to what can you do? And as an overarching, we want to find ways to create certainty and reduce cortisol. I want to just share 3 ideas. Probably things you're already doing and might not know, but might give you the emphasis to keep doing or do them even better. The first is to focus on what you do know, not what you don't. You're probably coming up with questions right now of, is there going to be a prom this year? Are my daughters going to be able to walk at graduation? And the answer is, we don't know. I'm not suggesting we push the question off. I'm just suggesting saying, we don't know, empathize, sit in the feelings. When you relate with someone and validate them, that provides a boost of dopamine from the relatedness. And so you really want to try and relate, then move on. Don't sit in it, think about, and then shift your focus to what you know. What can you do this week? What can you do next week? The second concept is also not new, but something we can take a little bit more strenuously, is creating our new temporary routines. As Lisa said last week, our days are blending into personal from professional to school to work, family time. All the lines are blurred. The brain craves structure and certainty. So as much as you can actually sit down, write out your routine, be explicit with when you have time to walk outside perhaps, adding in new things, but also making sure you pay attention to the essentials, the things that have to happen. Instead of not liking that they're happening and trying to push them off, just face them, put it in your routine, and do it. You can also add moments of joy we have a little bit more mental space and a little more physical space due to some of the extracurriculars being canceled. So use this as an opportunity to add things that give you joy. When you have a thing that gives you joy, it releases a reward chemical called dopamine, which, by the way, is an antidote to the cortisol that's in your body when you have the stress response. So the more that you can include those joy moments, the more it's going to take the bad and replace it with the good. The last thing that I just started to get into in terms of recommendations to do would be to find other ways to produce reward chemicals in your brain. Believe it or not, it's easier than you think. A simple practice of having your daily gratitudes, again, not a new concept, but what might be new to you is what it does for your brain. When you think back and scan your day for what you found positive and what joy moments you had and go to share that, you're getting a boost of dopamine. What's really powerful is that you get that boost of dopamine again because the brain cannot differentiate between something that's actually happened and that's happening right in the moment or not, or imagined. So the more that you can think and focus on the gratitude, again, think of cortisol and dopamine as a teeter-totter. And when your cortisol is up high, the more that you can put the reward chemicals in there and think about and focus on the joy, the gratitudes, then you're going to bring that cortisol level down. Okay, now I want to shift into our second concept. And again, start with a question. Who here is feeling isolated socially? Are you craving human interaction from people outside of those that are living under your four walls? I would say the answer is a resounding yes from all of us. And this is because our brains are wired to connect. Now, this doesn't matter if you're introverted, extroverted, or whatever your personality type is, our brains, all of us, are wired for connection. Matthew Lieberman, a social cognitive neuroscientist, posits that this need for connection is as basic and fundamental as food and shelter. One of the primary reasons for this is because of our need to survive. It goes back to our physical needs again. When we work together, our chances of survival are greater. So for example, if we do an act of kindness for someone, we actually get a boost of a reward chemical, again, called oxytocin this time. This is often referred to as a trust or bonding chemical. And when you do this, the beauty of it is the other person receives that boost as well. So you get a double whammy on this one. So the ideas for how to drive social connection, I would say two things. One, do something nice for somebody else. Do an act of kindness. It doesn't have to be big. Even as small as it, if it's a small thing, like going out of your way to pay a compliment to somebody, that still gives you that boost and reward. The brain does not differentiate on the size of the prize. The second thing that I would say that you can do to help sort of have that connection is try and drive towards the deep connection. This doesn't mean going in a text. This means picking up the phone, hearing someone's voice. Better yet, getting on a video chat, seeing their face. And even better yet, if you feel comfortable with the social distancing, go on a walk with the appropriate guidelines intact. Do as much as you can to drive deep connection. When you do, your brain will be rewarded and again, bring those cortisol levels down. So the takeaway from today, again, is to have a new view on the things that you likely already doing or considering doing or might even want to add in. But think about the things that your brain needs. It craves certainty and it needs to connect. So the more you can do to drive those rewards, the better. I wish you all health and happiness in this challenging time, and please continue work to make your brain happy. Thank you.